Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here as ever for today's video, all about the Business Technology ACCA exam, going through all of the extra MTQ questions available to you on ACCA's website for free. If this is the actual first time you've ever clicked on one of my videos, hello, my name is James, I'm an ACCA qualified member from the UK, and on my channel I help out ACCA students and accounting professionals around the world share my experience and insights. So if you'd like access to all of my free resources, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and leave me any comments or questions that you would like me to answer. I answer them all, and I always dedicate all my videos to my lovely subscribers, because today is no different as ever. As you can see in the middle on the screen, Master Gorham kindly left me an actual comment about this is his second time doing the AB exam. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, the AB exam is referring to the Accountant in Business, which is now known as the Business Technology or F1 paper. So, Master Gorham, I hope the video helps. What I've done for you to help out is I put all the timings in the description below so you can actually pause the video, have a go at it yourself, and then hear my review of it. I've also put down there the links that you can access the free resource. It's going to take you there directly, along with all of the recommended texts and other resources that I'd be using to help you revise for this exam. If you do find the video helpful as we go through, be sure to give it a massive like and thumbs up so that more accounting and ACCA students can see these videos. As ever, I really appreciate all the support for the channel. It's absolutely mega that the videos are helping so many of you out there. So be sure to share it with your friends as well, because it could be that little difference that gets those extra small marks in the exam that gets you into the 50% plus pass mark for you to progress onto your next exam. Now, the first thing just to be aware of, there are no Section A questions within this actual video. Well, I've done another video on the channel if you want to check that out. But we've only got we've got 6 questions worth 4 marks here. So on the basis that you have 1.2 minutes per mark in this exam, if you're going to attempt it yourself, you've got to give yourself 28.8 minutes for this, okay? So round it up to 29, so it makes it a bit easier. But it's just to give you an idea that the 1.2 minutes per mark comes from, well, you've got 2 hours in the exam, you've got 100 marks, so hence 120 minutes divided by 100, 1.2 minutes per mark. So just to be aware, there is also, as I said, a video on my channel where I've gone through Section A questions as well on top of it, so be sure to check that one out as well. But this is just to roll you through now all of the other key areas on here, and you've got all these sort of navigating the answers, all these sort of aspects, the exam process. I'll show you about this as we enter the exam as well, and the other features, and exiting the exam, which we'll do once we've gone through each of the questions on there. So this is where, again, feel free to go and attempt the questions yourself, then you can play back the video to help you out. And of course, you know, for a bit of enjoyment for myself, a bit of business technology on an afternoon in my world. So yes, if I'm going to do it, you can do it as well. So here we go. So I'm going to click the start exam on here. And just to be aware, as these are Section B questions, and you can see here, this is exactly the same sort of format you'd have for the real exam. There will be half marks as we go through. And the key thing with the Business Technology exam is you can pick up half marks in Section B, but you can't in Section A on here. And just so we get familiar with the actual practice platform on here, if you see the test progress details, if you click that button on there, notice how we've got the 6 questions on here. They are clear, so hence they're incomplete. Once we complete them, I'll show you at the end, it'll go orange. And then another really good tool to actually have is the flag option. So if you want to revisit a question in your exam, just simply click the flag for that particular question, go onto there, and there you can see the flag as well. So it's just to help you out, especially if you want to come back or you've got another aspect of the question to have a look at. So let's remove the flag on here, and again, we'll just start to walk and talk through the actual background to question 1 now, that you can have a go at in your own time. Pause the video, watch it all the way to the end. It is definitely going to help. These are one of the key areas why people fail the Business Technology exam. So going through questions like this, I'll walk and talk you through the answers, what I'm thinking at this point when I look at a question on here, and I hope it helps you out on it. So without any further ado, we've got the first question on here with the actual timer ticking away as if it's the real thing. But we've got the background on here. as to the diagram below represents a conventional microeconomic model demonstrating equilibrium under perfect competition. Okay, so sort of setting the scene on here, we've got 3 lines, A, B and C, and how many tasks we've got? 3 on here. So hence we've got the 1 mark and 2 marks there. Okay, so as ever, if you get a diagram in your actual examination, I'll keep it still on here, is the first thing you always do is go to the actual axis on here. And as you can see, just tell yourself, the further I go down the diagram here, the more output that is going to be placed into the market. And then we look at the other axis up here for the dollar. Now, this is where we actually refer to price on here. And maybe don't get confused with other sort of diagrams, maybe the break-even diagram, anything like that, but where you might think it could be total revenue on it, but usually referring to with a dollar sign or a pound sign, we're referring to price. Then the next thing I'm thinking of here is, before I've even looked at the requirement, well, we've got some actually intersecting one another, we've got one completely flat on there as well, and different sort of gradients on there, and different steepness. So before I've even had a look at any of these on here, okay, next one I'm thinking, well, have we got basically the same sort of options? And this is a cheeky thing they always do in the exam, is notice on here how you've got average revenue, marginal cost, average cost, and they mix them up as well. So one area where people make mistakes in this exam is they think the same options are the same one for there and the same one for there. So just be aware as we walk and talk it through. So as you can see on here, we've actually got, well, the first one is which schedule does function A on the diagram represent? So you've got A on there, and it's a really high steeping curve, and what we're saying is the further the output goes down there, the higher the actual price. And as you can see, it actually goes under the C line on there. So this is really going to demonstrate if you actually covered the actual microeconomic model on here, because as you can see on here, we've now got to be referring to, well, what are we looking at? And the first question you have to ask yourself is this referring to a cost, or is this referring to revenue? Well, what we're saying there is the actual further, or the more output that we actually have going out, then it actually dips down. So in other words, the price comes down. So that's from benefiting from economies of scale on there and getting better at the production. But then there comes a point on here when this is where we're actually maximizing profits, where, not to give the game away, but I want you to say what I was going to say there, but we'll carry on. But at that point at the equilibrium, the A line now goes with a really steep gradient where I would assume on this, not to give the game away again, but the cost is going up significantly on there. So we've reached our optimal point where the mouse is, and then past that, it just goes up exponentially. So then we've got to think to ourselves, well, I know it's cost on here, but is it referring to marginal or is it referring to average cost? And marginal cost on there refers to the cost to produce one extra unit. And that usually goes in, well, usually it does go in tandem with marginal revenue, where the two cross. And as you can see on here, where it's at the flat line and it crosses on there, you say, well, that is where we are actually maximizing profit on here. So then you've got to say, well, according to the diminishing marginal returns, any extra additional units on here, this is what we're referring to, cost more to produce. So when we have an extra 1 unit, so I'm just going to squeeze up on here, that it goes on here, this is where the marginal cost associated with that extra 1 unit gets more and more and more. So my answer for the first one is definitely going to be marginal cost, because it also links into that line there for part C, which I do want to give away for later on. But then we get asked on here, which schedule now does the function for B on this actual diagram represent? So again, referring again to the laws of diminishing returns, so if you want to have a look at that in your actual textbook, what we're referring to again is relating to costing, but because this is now the actual average cost as well, so this is where we don't take into account the average or the marginal revenue. But as you can see on here, the curvilinear line is that as we get better with being more efficient in our practices, the curve gets lower and lower and lower. Then we get to our optimal point here, where it comes into actual equilibrium on there, and it sort of intersects, should we say, a better word for it. And then from that, as you can see there, the gradient now gets steeper because it is becoming more costly to keep actually producing that good at that point of output. So the more output we produce, the higher the cost becomes on there, and hence the average cost increases. So I'm going to have average cost for that one on there. And I know we did allude to it earlier, but then which two schedules could function C on the diagram represent? And this is where on here for C, notice how we've got output going there completely flat, and then we've got on C, it remains at the same amount. Now this is where it refers to the actual revenue on here, and that's why I tried to put in earlier about saying it was price on the axis with the dollar and revenue with C on there, is the fact that, well, the market is actually already dictating the value that it is going to be. So that is the optimal price given at C there. So hence, regardless of it, the more output that we have, it's going to remain at the same price, and we'd already talked about it there with the marginal revenue when it's equal to marginal cost. That is our optimal output as a result. And you can see on here, when the marginal cost is lower than marginal revenue, we're making a profit, and then that is our optimal output for the given price level on there, just to explain it a bit more. So this is where I've just got to be careful, because as you can see on here, we've got the two different types of revenue, one in between the other, on there for the two different schedules. The other final thing just to point out on this one was, notice how they put 2 in capitals as well. This is because some students will only select 1. And if you only select 1 on here, well, you're not going to get the full marks for it as a result. So just to be crystal clear, so that you pick up on where are the actual capitals in your exam. So that takes us through question number 1 on there with a bit of explanation. And I know what you're thinking now. Question 2, oh my word, look at all those words. But do not worry, it's okay. We're just gonna, what would I do in this case? First of all, I wouldn't read that first of all. I'd go straight the way down here, and then I'd be thinking to myself, right, let's look at the options. So we've got Andrew, Ben, Camilla, Davinia on there, and then Andrew, Ben, Camilla, Davinia, all in the same row as well. Okay, so in other words, what it looks like, what they've written up here is then relinking to some of the different options. Okay, sounds reasonable to me. So task 1, before we've even read anything up above, use Anthony's hierarchy of management activity to select the type of management activity carried out by each person. Right, okay. And this is one of those things that if you read that and thought, oh my word, and you might be watching this thinking, what is Anthony's hierarchy of management? Well, this is where it's going to show up a student in the exam who's had a look at the textbook, and they can actually understand the key words. So even if you didn't know what Anthony's hierarchy of management was, which I'll tell you in a second, but just look at the different options on here. That's the next thing to go to, where I think strategically, and you say to yourself, oh, that is long term on there. This is how the business or the organisation, or the management in this case, are actually trying to optimize the business from a long-term perspective, so that the decisions or what they're talking about is always, say, 5 years or plus in mind. Tactical, I would say that is more the medium term on there, so maybe 1 to 5 years, so medium term. It may go into a bit more detail on there for a few more options. And then operationally, I think definitely short term, the day-to-day runnings of the business, and then sort of making it, there'll be maybe some urgency of something that needs to be sorted, maybe in a month's time or a week's time or something on those lines. So that's what I'm thinking first of all. And then a quick glance at task 2. In this situations described, so those are the paragraphs above, each person will need to communicate with others to carry out their objectives. Okay, so a communication factor from the syllabus. For each person below, select the type of communication they would need to use to achieve their objectives. So the best way it's going to work for us here is we're going to read Andrew, see what's going on, and then answer Andrew, and then say what type of actual sort of way they're going to communicate this is on here. So we'll go through them one by one and just work it through. So let's have a look at Andrew up at the top here. So we've got Andrew is involved in reviewing the performance of the company's product portfolio So, okay, so sounds pretty senior to me. To ensure overall corporate targets for market share and profitability are met. So, influencing internal and external stakeholders, so quite high priority on there. He is also responsible for recommending the discontinuation of any unprofitable products and for initiating new product development opportunities. Right, you should already be getting a gauge as to say, well, is this now, it's definitely not short term, is it medium or is it long term? To achieve this, Andrew must collect his market research and relevant sales and cost data, right, that's lots of numbers, lots of figures, lots of analytics, from a number of divisional sales managers, again, the seniority of it, big decisions being made within this business, how it's going to be operating, in a wide range of geographical markets, so massive expansion, so definitely going to be more sort of long-term and wider thinking on this before he can analyse them. So analysts on there, large amounts of data, and it's going to have to be sort of organised in an efficient manner. So straight away on there, definitely not operational, not day-to-day. It's not tactical for the medium term. I'm definitely going to go strategic. Then with Andrew, we've got on here, well, how's he actually going to communicate and sort of carry out those objectives? One, to actually bring it all together and then communicate it to the other members of staff. Well, they've highlighted analytics, lots of data, various different aspects on there. So spreadsheet worksheets is the one that really stands out, that none of the others are going to be sufficient enough for the level of detail. So hence I'd be selecting that on there. So that covers us for Andrew. We've then got Ben on here. Okay, so Ben analyses the standard cost variances from the departmental budget and has produced an exceptional report for his manager which lists the main variances. Okay, so if you think variances, are we in a favourable or adverse position? So favourable, we're better off than we expected. Adverse, we're not doing as well. Ben needs to further explain and explore the exact causes of each of these variances. Okay, so why did it happen with his manager? To agree with him a set of departmental recommendations for the next budgetary period on there. So again, that is not strategic. That is not long term of over 5 years. It's not short term for less than 6 months. So I'm automatically referring to the sort of tactical, sort of maybe in the next year or two on there. And then because he sort of highlighted on here, Ben needs to further explain the actual causes with his manager. I'm then thinking the actual types of communication. So I'm going to go tactical on there. Definitely. Was it right? Oh, there you go. It did go right. If it doesn't go right, then it doesn't put the mark on there. Then we've got to say, how is he going to actually communicate this? Well, it's because they gave it away on here. Ben needs to further explain and explore these causes on here with his manager. So he's got to explain and explore and be in contact with his manager on it. So it's not really going to work as a telephone call because they're going to have a look at these figures on there. The committee paper involves all of the sort of board of directors, not really anything to do with that. An email message, there's going to be to and throwing, so that's not going to work. Spreadsheets, yeah, they'll be involved, but I'm going to say to get it effectively done and how they should communicate it, I would be going for the face-to-face meeting. Spot on. Now we have Camilla is the next one on here. So Camilla has developed a vision for the general direction of the actual business. Okay, so I'm already thinking there, vision, if one of the first things that could be potentially strategic on there as well. Right, general direction. Sorry, I'm now looking down at Camilla on there. I'm getting confused. Don't do this in your exam. So Camilla's developed a vision for the general direction of the business over the next 3 or 4 years. Right, that there straight away tells me strategic first of all, because then that is long term, being visionary and looking and forward thinking on this. She had to think about where are we now, where do we want to be, and put forward a set of formal proposals. Okay, Camilla must provide this information to all board members for discussion at the next directors meeting, so to which she is invited. So she's thinking strategically about how this is going to work going forward, changing the direction of the business. So I'm definitely going to be going strategic on here. Spot on, lovely stuff. The 3 to 4 years was a good giveaway, and how they're changing long term. But then, because we've got the board members on here, and for anything to get passed within a large organisation, there are bound to be many committees that it would have to go through and to be authorised, so that you don't get sort of one person changing the whole direction of the business without consultation. So this will be really key on here, that no chance of an email or a telephone call or a face-to-face meeting or spreadsheets. There must be a sort of committee paper on there discussing all these elements, which there is actually the meeting on here as well, which she has been invited to. So definitely there, but it was committee paper and the board of directors, and it's the sort of seriousness of the actual decision that is the deciding factor to select that on there. Right, staying focused on here for Davinia works as a sales ledger and credit control officer. She is responsible for posting sales invoices into the personal accounts of customers and reconciling the individual account balances with the total from the receivables control account. Okay, now this doesn't sound very strategic at all. It might be tactical, but it depends what they say, but it's edging towards more operational. She's also responsible for credit control. Well, credit control is on a short-term basis on there. As part of the latter role on there, so from the credit control, Davinia must contact particular customers, so that is today or this week, for urgent established, okay, this is operational, when they will settle their accounts, to warn them of pending legal action. Well, that can't be tactical or strategic, because that is more than a year. Well, the pending legal action is so short term, within a week or so, within the day, within the hour, if they do not provide a satisfactory response on there. So I can already see some urgency on here, which will link into our actual communication. So 100% it is going to be operational on there, hence our big tick, lovely stuff. And then on here, how are you going to communicate something urgent to someone? And this is where, different offices will work in different ways, but you have to use your common sense on this, that if you want to get hold of someone urgently, you're going to have to make the telephone call potentially for the face-to-face meeting, but I'd be going telephone call because some people just don't check their emails on it. Not 0% chance of committee paper, and a spreadsheet isn't going to fit the bill. So I would be going telephone because of the urgency of it on there. So hence, yeah, big tick, lovely stuff. But that was the giveaway. Pending legal action, short term, and urgency on there. So that takes us through question number 2. Now then, what have we got here? Question number 3. So what have we got here? Different organisations have different types of organisational structure. And if we just quickly scroll down, we've got some diagrams on here with the drop downs. And all right, which 4? So we've got to select 4. So this is where the half marks will come in. So for each one you get right, you'll get half a mark for it. And advantages. Notice how it is in capitals, so definitely something to pay attention to. But what you have there is task 2 is not really related to task 1. So unlike the last question, which task 2 and task 1 fitted in together, that's what I was checking there. So as you can see on here, what have we got? So the following diagrams represent different types of organisational structure. Select the correct description for each diagram. Now the key thing on here is we're going to have different options. So we've got Shamrock, Matrix, Divisional, and Functional on here. And as you can see, Shamrock, Matrix, Divisional, Functional. Shamrock, Divisional, Functional, Matrix. So they're all they're all still in there, but it's a case of getting them all mixed up. Now the first one on there, I've heard of this, and I've looked through it through the business technology exam itself. But if you didn't know what that is, we'll come on to that later on, it's okay. Just have a little look through. And to be honest, pick out the one that you are most comfortable on going on first, where you look at this one to yourself on here, and you go, well, that is a matrix where you have actual one manager. You could have different people. You've not just got one manager to actually report to. You've got several for different areas. So hence that's where we have a matrix to say, well, who does finance have to report to? Who does production have to report to on there? So hence that was the easiest one for me on there as we go through, and you can see the half mark on there. Now, what we have here is we've got the usual sort of hierarchy thing you might see in a textbook, where you've got the CEO, but then you've got cars, parts and trucks, or the CEO, production, finance, sales and HR. So let's pull down, I'll twitch my eye on there. Whilst we pull down on here, what have we got as the potential options? Well, we've got either divisional or functional, okay? And it's now on, you're thinking to yourself, oh, which one is it? Which one is it? How will I go about this? And again, you've got the ones down here for production, finance, sales and HR. Well, would you actually say these are actual functions of a actual business? Now, I know it can be maybe described as these are different maybe divisions of a business, but I'd be saying that these here for cars, parts and trucks are more divisions on there because they don't actually make the business function, if that makes sense to you. So I would have divisions on there, and these are the departments that help the business to actually function on there. That's what I'd be thinking to sort of explain it to you nice and easily. Where you've got the different divisions that put all the pieces of these cars and trucks together, and then these are the functions of the business, which I'm hoping it now says 1.5 at the top. Lovely stuff on there. And what we finally have on here then is the top one up here for Shamrock, and this is where you've got different sort of types of organisation from the actual structure on it. So you've got the core structure, the suppliers, and the sort of interface on there. And if you see it in your actual core text, these, I know they're sort of circles, but they're actually meant to be leaves on there. So it's referring to Shamrock on there, is it? But again, you could use your actual sort of nous to say, well, I've got those three options on there. It's most likely going to be that one. But that's literally where it's referring to. And you'll see it in your textbook, those are 3 leaves on there. I think the chap was Irish or Northern Irish, who was the actual, sort of came up with the theory for it. Right. Now, coming on to task 2, which 4 of the following are advantages? Okay, so try to picture it in your mind what's going on here, which can be attributed to a functional organisational structure. So, like with the CEO, production, finance on there, I'll see if I can get it all on one screen for you. There you go, what about that? Brilliant stuff. So in other words, how that functional organisation functions as an organisation, what are the actual advantages that can be attributed to having an organisation set up like that? When we've got to come up with 4 on here. So if you only answer 3, well, you're only going to get a maximum of 1.5 marks. But 4 of the following, first of all, we've got expertise is pooled. Well, I would say yes, because all the production expertise is there, all the finance expertise is there, all the sales, all the HR. So I'd be going, yes, that sounds reasonable to me on there. Which again, we've got the actual duplication is avoided. And I say to myself, yes, because I've not got sales people in the HR team and I've not got finance people in the production team there. They're all sort of in their own areas, so hence the work is not going to be duplicated from overlapping one department to another. So they're the first 2. Recruitment of specialists is facilitated on there. Well, that sounds pretty reasonable to me, to be honest, because you've got all people who specialise in production in that one box there, or that one area, that functional area of the business. Same with finance, if they're ACCA members or whatever in their sales teams. So the recruitment of the specialists is facilitated that if we want a HR expert, we go to the HR department as to who we know and what gaps to fill. So for now, I'm going to put that down on there. Next one, we've got coordination is improved throughout the business. You read that and you go, well, because they're all grouped together like that, you would assume that yes, but in terms of coordination, we don't know how it's actually run on a systems basis for day by day or anything on those lines. It could look like that, but it could have completely poor systems. So I'm less likely to go for that one. Well suited to centralized businesses. Again, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. I mean, if it's a centralized business where all of these departments are all under one roof within one organization in one building on there, then that is going to suit that company rather well, isn't it? What have we got as the next one? Breaks down vertical barriers. Well, not necessarily, no, not on that for it, because they've all got to operate with one another. It's not going to break down those barriers because we've not sort of segmented them in any way. Focuses particularly on customers and outputs. Again, it could be argued on there to say, yes, it might be that it's quite helpful to have all the HR people in one area, but we don't know on this as to say, well, are they really effective at actually doing their jobs on there? And are they actually operating with the customers and outputs at heart? These departments may be set up like that, but we don't know how effective or how efficient they're actually being to manage those outputs. So, not likely, not as nailed on as the first three. Facilitates greater flexibility and faster decision making. Again, not necessarily. Because I look at that and go, greater flexibility, well, in what sense are we looking at there? It's not really specific enough. And then faster decision making. Well, yes, I agree that could be right, that if you've got all the sales people here, but what happens if you've got about 8 sales managers within this box? Then that fast decision has to go through maybe 4 or 5 people to get to the CEO versus maybe 1 or 2. So I'm less inclined to go for that. Coordination's improved. No, I'm edging to well suited to centralized businesses. I'll be honest, in there, breaks down vertical barriers. Yeah, it's going to be that one. But can you see how I'm trying to work it out by saying, hang on, is this actually an advantage to a functional organization? Well, it's going to be that one. Oh, there we go, rock and roll. But you will get questions like that in your examination where you've just got to walk and talk it through to yourself and try to understand. Right, let me picture and think about that organisation in my head right now. And does it sound reasonable to what is being asked on there? And obviously, make up your own way of communicating it to yourself. Obviously, walking and talking it through here, hopefully it's helping out. So next one on here, right, we've got 4 paragraphs that are going to relate into something down here. And we've got task 1, we've got task 2. So let me just put it up on there. So I'm just going to go straight to the tasks and then we'll come on to the questions, because as you can see on here, we've got Ahmed Ben, Kritika and Damala, and then we've got, there's a Chloe on here. Okay, so different names on here for task 2. But then you've got expectancy, instrumentality, shall I say, and valence on there with the same ones on here. So it's testing the Vroom theory, but then with actually with 8 different people. So to me, task 1 looks like all up here, and then task 2 is all down here. So let's stick with that. I would say that's pretty okay to me. So which of the 3 elements of the Vroom theory of expectancy? Okay, so this is referring to what the actual employee is expected to do within their role and what's going to be their output. So the cause and effect of what they're expecting from what they're doing is most significant in affecting each of the candidates' motivational force. Okay, so whether that's what they're doing is worth it or that they're getting a reward for it. Regarding a potential application for the sales manager's role on here. So we've got Ahmed, Ben, Kritika and Damala, as we said, expectancy, instrumentality, and we've got valence. So expectancy on there is all about the actual effort that they're actually having to put into it on here. And then instrumentality is the actual performance relating to it as well. So we'll go into more detail when we have a look at the others on here. And then the valence refers to the actual reward. So is it going to be worthwhile for them at the end of the day? So is it actually desirable what they're going to get as a result from this? Then you've got, well, we're going to have a look through all the different ones up here, but then am I going to have to work hard in order to get it, versus the actual instrumentality on here to, are we going to hit the targets to actually get those rewards for it? So let's just have a quick look through this, because there's a lot of information on there, isn't there? So we're just going to break it down to try and get the best out of it. So Go Car Co is a car sales company. The company employs 4 sales staff, Ahmed, Ben, Kritika and Damala, as we saw below, at their largest branch. A new vacancy has arisen for an area sales manager for the region based at the head office in another city. Okay, so that was where they were referring to in the question on their application for the sales manager role from there. The 4 people were asked to an interview by their own manager to review their own performance. Okay, this is where it comes into the theory, and to indicate whether they are motivated to apply for the new role. Okay, and the following were part of their responses. The managers actually questioned about that. So Ahmed on here has put, I have all the skills for the role and wish to further my career and take on a more senior role. Okay, I think I will be successful because I trust the interview panel to act fairly and transparently. So I'm reasonably confident that they will recognise me as the most actual suitable candidate on there. So you've then got to be thinking to yourself, well, he seems pretty confident on there. He's referring to the actual performance relating to it, that he's going to say to himself, well, I can actually probably do this job on there, and the actual reward's going to be fine. I'm going to further my career. So I'm more sort of referring to the sort of instrumentality on there would be my first one for it, because he's not sort of relating to the balance of money. So I'm going to go for Ahmed on there for the half. Nice, okay. And then what have we got on here for Ben? So I've performed well over the last 12 months and have been rewarded with a very good performance bonus as a result. Okay. So the last 12 months, did they mention, because we've got Vroom theory expected most significant in affecting each of the candidates' motivational forces. I'm just having a look back at the task to see, whenever I see like a 12 months or something like that, I just go, what are we actually referring to here? So it's sort of referring more to the sort of reward aspects, because he's got a bonus as a result. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. That are the actual rewards desirable for this individual in Ben on there? If I apply for the manager's role and successful, I may not be better off financially, because I would no longer get the sales commission or a performance bonus in my new role. Also, it would be more convenient for me personally to be based here than at the head office because of the extra travelling involved. Well, I'm saying to myself there, I'm linking to Valence, because that's all about what's the reward from all the effort that they're actually putting in, from that person's desired perspective, well, from their motivational force perspective on there. So I'm going to go with Valence on Ben. That sounds reasonable to me. Now, we've got to have a look at Kritika now. So I work extremely hard on training and developing myself in the sales role. Okay, so when I saw that sales role, and then we had also down there the sales manager's role, okay, so that links into it sort of, okay, they're sort of a bit aligned on there. So maybe she actually feels quite confident to say that, could I actually go into it? Here you go. But the training materials we are using do not seem to be very effective. So, okay, will they actually meet that expectation? When I use the suggested selling techniques, I don't seem to be able to sell any more cars, so I don't feel I'm confident enough to apply for a promotion just yet on there. Right, okay. Well, Valence is all referring to, within the actual theory, the reward process for it. On there, which again, not really referring to the actual rewards on here. Are we referring to I've got to get this right, instrumentality on there, because I'm focusing on the requirement plus the recording. But when coming back to it, more importantly, that's all about sort of hitting targets on there. And is it going to be effective enough? Well, kind of, but it's more sort of referring to the expectancy. As I say, if I do work hard, I know the training is a bit off on here, but will I actually be able to achieve this? Well, with some changes, then it could be. So it could work. So I don't feel like I'm confident enough to apply for the promotion yet. So she's confident on the actual hard work and training, and if she works hard, then she will actually achieve it. So I'd be more sort of these two for instrumentality on there and valence are really coming out to me as no. So I'm going to go for expectancy on there is the most reasonable from that statement. And as you can see, I'm just trying to dissect it from what we're given to help us out on here, really, because it's never going to be crystal clear for you as a result. So Damla's put, I'm really keen to apply now. I'm coming on to the fourth one, sorry. To apply for the role and possesses the relevant skills and a master's degree in management, okay? So the problem I have with applying this role is that I do not think I'll be successful because I think the interview panel have already identified other people who they prefer for the role. I fear that however highly qualified I am, even if I perform well at the interview, I will not be successful on there. Well, again, it's not referring to valence because that's all reward basis and monetary focused on there. And because we've already got one answer, this is a really good technique for it, to say, well, we've got one answer for expectancy, instrumentality and valence. Well, it definitely doesn't sound like Ben's as a comparison to it. It really sort of follows what Ahmed on here about wanting to sort of further his career. But obviously from his side, he thinks he will be successful and he's confident on it. But then Damla's also qualified on it, but then she thinks that she actually can reach all the targets from there. So, and then the sort of expectancy that she already knows that she can sort of work hard and she's already got that sort of level of competency within this. And then you think to yourself, can she actually if she's given the opportunity, she'll hit the targets and go through with it. So it's not black and white, the answer, but it's definitely not valence. It's less likely to be expectancy, and instrumentality is the one shining out to me as the possible one. So I'm going to go for that. But trying to justify it and read between the lines on here can be a bit tricky, but this is where you've just got to get better at it from more and more question practice, and just don't panic in the exam. That's it, really. So coming on to task 2 on here now, just to sort of walk and talk it through. Obviously, first of all, we've got to go down to the actual requirement. So we've got which candidate has the lowest motivational force. So we've got expectancy, instrumentality, and valence on there. The lowest motivational force overall to apply for the new role at the head office on there. So we've got Alwyn, Bob, Chloe, and Dummy on there. But basically on this, all we need to be doing here, well, actually, let's just have a look on the manager of the the manager of 4 other car sales staff at another branch of Go Cars. So, okay, so this is where the other names come from. Has been asked to complete a grid for head office to estimate the overall Vroom's motivational force of each of these salespeople to apply for the vacant manager's role at the head office. And the following scores out of 10 were given by the manager for the potential candidates, okay, against each of the 3 elements of motivational force. So as you go through. Now, for here, what we're looking for is which candidate has, and notice again in capitals, is the actual lowest on here. So all you need to do, if you've got an actual pen and paper in front of you or calculator, is you just simply multiply those figures over. So Alwyn on there, if you multiply the actual 4 by 8 by 7, gives you 224, so 224 on there. For Bob, we've got 8 multiplied by 6 multiplied by 3, and that gives us 144. Chloe, we've got 3 multiplied by 7 multiplied by 7, which is 147. And then dummy on the end for 7 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 8 gives us 112. So hence dummy is going to be the lowest on there for it, which will give us the 2 on there. But it's just, put it down in your notes that if you ever were to see lowest on there and the actual theory, that is where it is literally coming from as a result, just to help you out. So now coming on to question number 5, to just walk and talk it through on here. So what we have now is, again, we've got select the best form of communication method for each of the following objectives on here now, okay? So we've got the conference, face-to-face meeting, report, notice board. Select the correct communication method is important to ensure that the communication objective is achieved, okay, yeah. Hence why we communicate on there. Examples of different types of communication methods include the conference, face-to-face meetings, reports and notice boards that we see below. So we've got to select the best form of communication method for each of the following objectives. So what have we got on here? We've got explain complex facts and arguments on there. So you've got, could you see anyone doing that within a face-to-face, well, could maybe, but within a conference? No. Notice board? No on there. Well, I'm thinking to myself, if it's complex with facts and arguments, you want to make sure you articulate and get those points across correctly, that some may be lost within a meeting. You might do some of the highlights in a meeting, but overall, if you've got complex facts and arguments, they'd be going in a report in my eyes. Transmit information cheaply to a large number of people in a physical location. Well, that's definitely got to be notice board. You put the information up on the notice board so that people in their day-to-day, when they walk by it, will see it. It's not going to be a conference because conferences are not cheap on there. And a face-to-face meeting, you're not going to have really a large number of people in it, and it will probably get missed in a report. So I'm going to have notice board on there. And then the next one we have on here, reach a large audience over a wide area. So what have we got on there? Well, you think to yourself, that is a conference, in essence, what you've described for me. And then finally, to actually generate new ideas, this is where people bounce off each other, and you might have some sort of visual aids and all that sort of jazz, which usually really intends for a face-to-face meeting, I would say on there. So that would have been a nice 2 marks in the exam, wouldn't it? That was okay. What have we got on here? So task 2, for each of the following situations, select a general flaw in the communication process. And we've got a pull down on here. So just be careful to make sure that you don't see the points that they get overlapped. And a good thing on here is, when you've actually got the answers on here, when you're reading it through, I'd have those up there. So non-verbal signs, so obviously not talking on there, a misunderstanding, so it wasn't effectively communicated, distortion on there, so it was communicated but not effectively, overload, someone who's taken on too much, and then selective hearing, only wanting to hear some things over another. So John arrives late to the office. While booting up his computer, he remembers that he ought to have bought his lunch. As he contemplates, his phone rings and a colleague asks him for some information. While he's still on the phone to another colleague, sends him a meeting invite by email. The meeting was scheduled at short notice just before lunch. When John is out buying his lunch, he remembers that he has missed his meeting. Well, that sounds like overload to me for poor John. What have we got on here? Gareth misreads, let's just pull it down. Gareth misreads an email containing technical information from IT on here as to how to convey a virtual conference call. When trying to set up the video link, he is unable to connect to the virtual audience on there. Okay, so misreads an email containing technical information. Okay, I mean, we could... That could be a couple of them on there. I mean, let's have a look at Beverly on this one. Let's have a look at Beverly. So Beverly, the team leader, because what I'm expecting is that maybe there's not going to be another overload answer on here, I'm sure. But hey, let's just go through it. Beverly, the team leader, gives a briefing to her staff on the reorganisation of the department. She reassures staff that their posts and working conditions are likely to remain unchanged. However, she acts nervously and does not make proper eye contact, so that is non-verbal, with any of her other team while saying this. So non-verbal signs on there, I'm going to be saying spot on. See, I get that half mark in the bank. On there, I mean, coming back to Gareth on here, Gareth misreads. So that is telling me that's a misunderstanding on it. Gareth misreads an email containing technical information from IT on how to convene a virtual conference call. When trying to set up the video link, he's unable to connect his virtual to his virtual audience. Yeah, so that's a misunderstanding, that he got the information from the IT department but didn't utilize it correctly. So, I mean, it's not an overload, it's not a non-verbal sign on there, and it's not distortion because he got the correct information on there and it wasn't vague. So, misunderstanding for me. And finally, on the notice board, a departmental meeting is announced for Friday at 9 a.m. Okay, so on the notice board, a departmental meeting is announced for Friday at 9 a.m. in meeting room 1. This is an important meeting about a staff training program, which all staff are required to attend. On the day of the meeting, half the staff arrive at meeting room 1 in the main building, which is being used for interviews. Brilliant. So they weren't specific in their initial announcement on the notice board. The remaining staff arrive at the meeting room 1 in the staff training department where the departmental meeting is being held. So they weren't specific on there. So there was a distortion in what they actually provided for the information. It was very vague and they weren't specific on it. So it's not an overload. It's nothing about selected. It's nothing to do with selective hearing because no one's communicating about it verbally. It was on the notice board. It can't be a misunderstanding because it wasn't specific in saying about that particular room. Because like with Gareth up above, he was given that specific information. And it's not a non-verbal sign either. So it has to be distortion. There you go. Nice. Right. Okay, we're on to question 6. Well, whilst we're on question 6 as well, I'll show you back on here for the test progress details. So question 6 we're still to complete, and the questions 1 to 5 that we have been through are on there. So that's just so you can check it on your system when you're going through the actual question yourself. But let's have a look through here. And what are we given on here? So trust, openness, respect, accountability. And then it looks like the first thing is what I think of is, are the two tasks related? And in some of the questions they were, some of them are not. And here below are 4 descriptions of business ethics. Which one best, again notice the capitals, describes what business ethics is concerned with? Okay, so before we actually have a read through these, I'm thinking to myself, are there any clues within the business ethics background information? So just read it through. So business ethics is increasingly important in the workplace. Okay, reasonable, good statement at the start. It governs attitude and behaviour at work. So I'm there thinking to myself, well, can I see attitude or behaviour maybe in one of the answers below? It can be defined in a number of ways. Agreed, we've got 4 ways at the bottom there. However, to be appropriate, the definition should contain certain key aspects. Okay, agree with you. Business ethics can also help to promote particular organisational values which a business should try and uphold. So in essence, we've got 4 statements down here, and we've got to work out which of these best describes what business ethics is actually concerned with. Okay, so we've got on here the first one. So in other words, I know it doesn't say it on there, but I'd be going. So business ethics is a form of pure ethics that compares ethical values and prescribes a universal moral approach for a business and individuals to follow in any given circumstance or situation. Right, okay, on there. I'm not sure on the word pure. That's it. A form of pure ethics that compares. It doesn't really work in practice where you have a pure ethics that compares the values to a universal moral approach, because there are going to be different organisations and different individuals that follow different, have different stances on it. So that one to me, first of all, is saying to me, not really, but we've got to read through the other three just to be crystal clear and sure. So say I'm thinking, well, which one is the most likely, or the one that best describes? Because at the end of the day, that kind of describes it, but then the other three might be ridiculous. So the second one, a form of applied ethics that examines ethical principles and moral or ethical problems applying to all aspects of the organisational conduct and relevant to individuals and organisations as a whole. Well, that one is definitely more rounded and best describes business ethics than the first one, because you notice how the first one said pure ethics, this one says applied ethics on there, and examining the actual principles, moral and ethical problems, and these are linking now into the sort of attitudes and behaviours that we saw above. So second one so far, it was the pure ethics up there that really put me off. An ethical framework for decision making should apply to the managers of a business and their conduct, particularly in relation to the recruitment, selection and promotion of staff. Well, that is being very specific to managers, but it doesn't best describe what business ethics is actually concerned with, because it's not just about managers, it's the way that the whole organisation and individuals apply themselves with different sort of moral compasses and applying principles in different aspects of how the organisation operates. So it's not that one for number 3 for it. It does contain some elements of ethics in there applied to managers, but it's asking which best describes what business ethics is actually concerned with as a whole. Right. So business ethics for the fourth option is a form of applied ethics examining. So notice on here we've got applied and applied. Examining moral principles applying to certain aspects of business conduct. I don't like certain aspects on there. And relevant to individuals and teams who have direct contact with external business stakeholders. That one's being too narrow on it there, saying about certain aspects of the business and then only being with direct contact with external business stakeholders. So yes, it does relate to these stakeholders and you have to be ethical, and it is a factor of it, but it's not considering the whole wider picture, which for me the second option does. So if we read through it again, I'll just listen to it as I say it. But if I said to you that business ethics is best described and concerned with a form of applied ethics that examines ethical principles and moral or ethical problems applying to all aspects of organisational conduct and relevant to individuals and organisations as a whole. For me, that one out of the four options best describes what it was. So definitely for me on there. Lovely stuff. And then what have we got down here? So we've got 4 different options, and then we're being asked for each situation described, select the organisation value that is being demonstrated. Okay. The following situations describe behaviour in the workplace. They all demonstrate organisational values which are consistent with ethical business behaviour. Okay, so if you're ever struggling on these sort of questions, try to picture in your mind what is going on, picture what that scenario is, and then saying, is it relating to trust, openness, respect, or accountability? Right, what have we got on here? So your team failed to achieve, oh great start here, your team failed to achieve its targets last month. Accepting the failure, you recommend to your manager how your team plans to improve performance to an acceptable level. It's not really relating to trust. It's not really relating to respect. Could it be argued that it is an open discussion, which I think is what they would be more sort of looking to maybe trick people on here, but I'd be more edging towards accountability. But what I'll do is I'll just read through the others and we'll see what other options we get, because if we get 3 other accountability ones, then maybe it's openness. But I'm more sort of swinging towards accountability on that one, on there. So next one, you have asked to work from home. Okay, your manager agrees, suggesting you should prioritize your work for that day as he is taking a day off on annual leave on there. Again, it's not accountability. It's not relating to actual respect on there. Again, openness or trust is going to be the one on there for it. So we've got openness and accountability to start off with, and then we've got openness and trust. Let's have a look on the third one, because this is where you just have to try and work it through on here. So the managing director of the company invites a range of staff from all levels. Okay, picture that hierarchy, everyone from the directors down to the usual staff of the organisation at the end of year function. He thanks everyone for their efforts, naming particular individuals and their specific contributions to the organisation. It's not trust. I think from the publicness of it, and all levels being invited and everyone being thanked, I would say that's a form of respect on there, that they paying homage to the hard work for the year. I wouldn't say it's accountability, because that would be referring to something more specific on there, such as the targets up above. So I would have that one on there first of all. I've got that on the 0.5. So finally, at your appraisal, you tell your manager about certain motivational problems which are affecting your work. You also describe how you feel underutilized as a team member and why. Oof. Again, could be argued on. It's not accountability. I'd say that comes across as more open on there than the actual manager agreeing to suggest the priorities of work on there. So I'd be more sort of inclined on openness. But then what I see now is we've got accountability up at the top here. So your team failed to achieve its targets last month, accepting the failure on there, and then actually you recommend to your manager how your team plans to improve for performance. So yeah, you're taking that on board. So I'd be going for accountability on that one. And then you've asked to work from home. Your manager agrees, suggesting you should prioritize your own work on that day. It seems like a pretty trusting way of communicating on there. So I'd be going trust on that one. Oh, spot on. There you go. It kind of sounded like open, but this one sounds more open. That at your appraisal, because at your appraisal you're being open about what's gone well, what hasn't. Are you going for maybe a pay increase? About certain motivational problems which are affecting your work. You also describe how you feel underutilized, which again, you most people would try and keep that in. So I'd be going for openness as that one on there. Oh, and we've just ticked over an hour on there. So for me, that now is 1 to 6 done. If this was a real exam on there, you'd click the exit mark on there. Are you sure you wish to exit? Obviously in your exam you go back and sort of check your ones on there. It's been ticking it up as we've been going through. So hopefully we've got it right on there. Your result is 100% pass. Just what we like to see. Obviously the video was slightly longer because I'm walking and talking it through, but I hope you find that helpful as we went through it. Be sure to give it a massive like and thumbs up below. Thank you so much for your support. I hope you enjoyed it today as well. Gosh, it would have been a bit awkward if I got a few wrong, but I hope it was helpful as we went through, and these little insights will just give you that extra bit of practice to help you pass your business technology exam. If you've got any other questions, like I said at the start of the video, be sure to leave me a comment below or just let me know what you thought of the video. I really appreciate it as well. I'm sure hopefully it was all okay. But as a final treat, as ever, I'll stick on the actual front of this video now some other recommended videos and the other computer-based examination video as well. So be sure to click one of them. It'll definitely help you out and could be that extra mark to help you pass your exam. But as always on that bombshell, I'll see you next time. Cheers.